Hi everybody, it's Lynn. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about seed beads. Um, you need to know certain things about seed beads to get into bead weaving, and I do want to show you guys some simple projects like so. This is a little bracelet that I made. I made this a long time ago. As you can see, I need to change out some of the findings that are on it. But this is peyote stitch, even count peyote stitch. And this I also made a long time ago. This is odd count peyote stitch. But first off, let's start out by talking about the different kinds of seed beads that there are. There are just regular seed beads, normally a size 11, and I have two examples of those to show to you. One is Toho, which is a very popular brand and a very good quality of a seed bead. And the other is Miyuki, which is also excellent. Now, these are Toho and these are Miyuki. And I'm going to show you there is a little bit of difference in size, even though they're both size 11s. The Tohos are just slightly bigger than the Miyukis. Either one is fine, but if you start with one brand, you need to continue with that same brand because even that tiny little difference in size makes a big difference if you're bead weaving. Now, um, bead weaving is normally done with delica beads. Well, no, that's not true. Peyote stitch is normally done with delica beads. Many other stitches, it doesn't matter. Now, that does not mean that you can't do peyote stitch with regular size 11 seed beads. You absolutely can. And I did a tiny little strip to show you. This is using the Toho size 11 seed beads that I just showed you. So you see, it can be done. This is using size 11 delicas. The difference is you see how those delicas just fit together. They're tiny little cylinders and they're all shaped the same. And the seed beads, regular seed beads, are more round. I don't know if you can see that or not, but if you go to the store and look at them, you'll definitely see the difference. Anyway, these are size 11 delicas. These are size 11 seed beads. This is what a delica looks like. I don't know if you can see, but you see in this little bead right here, how you can see it's a perfect cylinder, and you see how straight the sides are? That's because it's uniform. It's completely uniform. And if you're doing peyote stitch, this is a wonderful bead to use. Now, this is size 11. I'm going to show you size 8. Size 8s are much bigger. This is size 8. As a matter of fact, these might be the same beads. Okay? All right. Then you have other brands of beads that come in size 11. This is Ming Tree. It's a much less expensive brand. However, what you will find with these beads is that they lack consistency. You see how long that bead right there is? And then how short that one is? You see the inconsistency in the shape of the bead? That's what you will get if you go with any other brand than Miyuki or Toho. I've not found another brand as consistent as those two. Now, that's just my opinion, and there is nothing wrong with these less expensive seed beads. It's just that they're not good for certain projects. These are great to use for like a spacer bead or something where you don't need complete consistency. Like if you wanted to do a seed bead necklace with a bunch of strands or something like that, absolutely. Because you can order a quarter pound of the mean tree beads for probably less than this little package of delicas. Now, where do you get these beads? There are several places you can get them. Oh, I want to show you another brand. Now, these ones, they're called dynamites, and they're pretty consistent. Not like a Mayuki or a Toho, but to be honest, these are among the more affordable seed beads. This is a size 6. This is a size 8. So 6 and 8. The thing to remember with seed beads is the lower the number, the larger the bead. Now there's another size you need to know about. These are size 15s. These are used a lot in bead weaving to tighten down a project. Here's an example. I made this earring, and the cream colored beads are size 11 delicas. The copper colored beads are size 15-0 Mayukis. And what that does is it pulls that down to create that bezel and holds that stone in place. So what you're doing by changing sizes, going from an 11 to a 15, is you are shrinking your beading down. See how that pulls that in? So that's one thing that you can do once we learn how to do even count peyote. You can bezel rivolis or cabochons. Here's another example. The darker pink are size 11 delicas. That lavender color are size 15-0 seed beads. And what I've done here is a decorative edge to the same earring. It's made exactly the same way, but with a decorative edge on it. Okay? That's another thing you can do with seed beads. Now, once you learn how to do peyote stitch, you could make this bracelet. That's all this is. It's size 11 delicas and size 15 seed beads, and we have made that bezel hug that pearl by cinching down the circumference of our bezel. And this is easy to do, you guys. I will teach you how to do it if you want to learn. Now, this is another example of something you can do with seed beads. Now, this part is delicas. These are 8-0 delicas here, and these are 8-0 seed beads here. This is called brick stitch, and I'll teach you that too. It's easy, easy, easy. Okay. Now, for stringing, Fireline is my go-to. I love this stuff. It comes in crystal and smoke. Okay, it comes in a lot of different sizes. So depending on the project that you're doing is what you base what thread you're going to use on. Like if you were doing something with a lot of 15s, you might want to use this 4 pound. If you're using 11 O's, there's nothing wrong with using 6 pound. If you're using 8 O's, you could jump up easily to 8 pound. And Fireline comes, I believe it comes in 2s, 4s, 6, 8s, and 10s. And I get this, you guys. I order mine off Amazon. All this is fishing line, and you can get it on Amazon for considerably less than you will pay at a beading store. Now, as far as your delicas go, um, you can get those. There are several places that I get mine. I get most of mine from Fire Mountain Gems. I also get them from Eureka Crystal Beads, from Potomac Beads. But I wanted to tell you, if you want to get into seed bead and bead weaving and you have no stash of those things, there is a company called Adornable Elements that has a monthly subscription club. It's called Beads of the Month Club. And they do a lot of different beads. They do things like 2 hole beads, gemstone beads, what they call hot and trendy. but they also have a delica club of the month and a seed bead club of the month. And you get I have never had either of these subscriptions, but I know that you get either 4 or 7 or something like that number of um, containers of different colors of beads. You can go to their site. I'll put information down below of where to go and look. But if you want to build a stash of seed beads, that might be the way to go. I have never done it because I have an entire craft cart full of seed beads. And another thing that I wish I would have known when I first started buying seed beads is go with your metallics first. In all honesty, the only seed beads that I have reordered are the metallics. So if you're a silver girl, go with a lot of silver. If you're more gold, go with gold. You can get brass, you can get copper, you can get, I mean, it's endless, guys. I mean, there are so many different colors of all of these beads. I do, like I said, my go to is usually Fire Mountain just because they have a huge selection. But Potomac beads and Eureka crystal beads also have great selections of these. And I'm not sure which brands they carry on all of them, but look into those. Now, there are other stringing materials. There is a thread called Nymo, which is awesome. It comes on a spool, and it comes in a lot of colors. There's also one called KO thread. This is actually made by the same company that makes the Toho seed beads. So that's great. And then there's another one called Eslon. So you have to work with these a little bit to see what your favorite will be. The difference I will tell you between the Fireline and the actual thread, like the Nymo and stuff, is you have to pre-stretch this. It does stretch. But if you've got something that you're doing that's extremely tight and you find yourself to be a tight beater, this is great because it gives you a little bit of flexibility. I am a very, very tight beater. My stuff is so tight. I mean, you can see there is nothing loose here at all. And that's just a quick little thing I threw together right last minute just to show you the difference between delica and normal seed beads. So those are things that you really need to know. Oh, and also your beading needles. Most people use a size 10 beading needle. If you get into a lot of passes through beads, especially 15s, you're going to need a 12. I use 12 pretty much most of the time because I do use a lot of 15s for bezeling. But if I'm just doing something like, a project like one of these bracelets or something, the size 10 is great because it's a little bit bigger, it's easier to thread it, it's stiffer. So the sizes that I keep on hand are 10, 11, and 12. There is a size 13. However, it is so thin and so tiny that every time I've ever tried to use one, I've broken the needle with my first pass. So I don't recommend trying to use a 13. I think they're just too delicate. So the biggest difference between the beetles, biggest difference between the needles is the size of the eye. It's hard to get thread through a 12, but it's necessary. However, on some threads, you will not ever get it through a 12. I've never been able to get 8 pound through a size 12. So something else to consider. Another thing I will tell you when you start to bead or start to thread your needle, if you're using Fireline, take your pliers and flatten it. That makes it easier to get through the head of the needle or the eye of the needle. So, um, another thing I wanted to tell you is if you're making something like this, it's a good idea to have on hand closed jump rings. I have a few in both colors in like a 4 millimeter jump ring that's been soldered closed. The reason for that is you can bead that right onto your project and not have to worry about the cut in the jump ring slipping off, you know, the thread coming through the hole. And then you're able to attach a jump ring that does have a hole to that jump ring. And it doesn't really show, as you can see. You can also put a wire guardian on those. That's what I did here. That's just a wire guardian. And what that does is it protects your thread, because on this I use Nymo. It protects your thread from constant rubbing by your ear wire. So those are the things that I wanted to tell you. I think they're very important. And I'm going to just give you just a quick lesson in peyote stitch. And I'm going to use these larger beads because I think that'll be easier for you to see. So with even count peyote stitch, what you want to do is pick up the number of beads that you want for your width. Okay, I'm picking up 6. You're going to drop that down, leaving yourself enough of a tail to weave back in. With peyote stitch, you don't ever want to do a knot because it will show. So you have to be careful about that. So what I do, and I'll tell you that starting peyote stitch, the first 3 rows are the most difficult. Once you get past that, you can fly. So what you do is I hold them over my finger like that, pick up my next bead. Now I want this bead to sit next to that bottom bead. So what I have to do is skip that bottom bead and come up through the next bead. Just hold it with your fingers like that. And the first row or two, you may have to force your beads into place. When I say force them, I mean make them sit side by side. It's difficult if it's not a delica. But see, you want them to sit like that. Pick up your next bead. You're coming out of this bead. Your bead is going to sit next to this bead. So you want to go through that bead. So out one, skip one, through one. That's how you want to think of it. And then that bead will sit next to the one you just added. Okay? Do the same thing. You're coming out here, skip this one, go through this one. Okay? And you've completed row 2. That's what you'll have. The red's kind of short here. I apologize. Okay, now what I do, I find this the easiest way to manage these beads is when I get to the end, I flip it over. I tend to want to sew away from myself. Some people sew toward themselves, so you'll have to find what works for you. But we're coming out this end bead. We're going to skip it and go through this next one. Now, once you get to this point, all you have to know is you're going through your up beads, which means the beads that stick out. Okay? There's our next row. Now we're going to, you see how inconsistent these are? You see how that makes that kind of, right here, this bead is larger than the others, so it doesn't sit as pretty. That's why I said you really do want delicas to do bead weaving. Okay, see, I flipped it over. I'm going to pick up a bead and go through the bead sticking out. No, that's just about impossible for you to see. Okay, pull tight, pick up a bead, go through the next bead sticking out right there. Okay, pull it on through, pick up a bead, go through the next bead sticking out right here. Okay, and we're ready to flip it over. And that's all there is to it, y'all. It is that easy. So I think my next video, we're going to do a bracelet doing peyote stitch. And I'll show you how you can finish it if you want to. Um, there are a lot of different ways to finish something like this. So we'll figure out how we want to do that, and we'll do a little bracelet, okay? All right, guys. Well, that's kind of it for my Seed Beads 101. If you have any questions or you need help with something, please feel free to leave a comment for me. I will do my best to answer any question you have. If you have certain projects you want to see done, just ask. If I can, I will. If I can't, I'll find you a source. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.